Can I do like the Wayne's World countdown?
Do it.
Like,
Sure.
5, 4, 3. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our second ever installment of Audio Out Sessions. We have a very special guest here tonight with us, Mr. Terry Feldott, who many of you may know from the Guitar Junkyard and Stringed Instrument Museum. Maybe you didn't know that there's a stringed instrument museum there as well, but you'll learn a little bit more about that. And maybe y'all didn't know that Terry is also kind of a banjo prodigy and an acoustic guitarist, and he's written a few songs over the last, 30 years or so?
50 years.
Okay. All right.
Come on, you're selling me short, brother.
So yeah, we're gonna hear a couple of Terry's songs, which is, for me, I've known Terry for about half my life, and he's fixed many of my guitars and shared many stories with me just in his shop. But now we're just kind of reaching out to a broader audience with our broadcast here. And Terry, would you maybe just share how you kind of got started doing what you're doing? How did you end up in the
Well,
string
I
instrument?
started breathing the second I was born.
Oh yeah.
And that started it all, probably. Where I first got into music was when I was about 7 years old in Cub Scout meeting. A gentleman from the southern Appalachian Mountains came in and gave us a guitar demonstration, and he did some Hank Williams tunes. And I thought that was just the nuts. I didn't get excited about playing at that point, but I thought that was really cool. And then when the Beatles came on television on Ed Sullivan that one night, then it was time to get a guitar and start learning how to play. And that was probably, I was 11 or 12 at that time. And that was the first ideas that I thought I wanted to do that. So my parents went out and bought a Stella guitar for 3 boys, and I originally was going to play it left-handed. And
Are you left-handed?
No, my 2 brothers. I kick with my left foot, and I play pool left-handed.
Okay.
But I do nothing else left-handed at all.
Ambidextrous.
But when I grabbed the guitar, I went to the left side with it, which was sort of odd. And then when my brothers were playing it, an older and a younger brother, I said, well, I'm not going to change the strings around every time I have to want to play it. So I learned to play it right-handed. And I always use that as my excuse for as good as I am today is because I had to turn it around and learn how to play it sort of backwards. But that really, I tell people that doesn't have anything to do with it. The coordination skills involved in playing a string instrument or any instrument, left brain, right brain, it doesn't matter. You're going to, you can conquer any of those sort of things. So it really didn't bother me to turn it around at all. I didn't feel like I lost anything in that process.
Especially at that age, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're young enough
11
that
years
you
old.
could have just figured it out.
And I
After practice.
have to say that I learned all on my own. I never had a lesson. I've had many lessons about playing music while I've been in bands and playing with people who I got to jam with and practice with and be in a group and or a band with. So I've learned many lessons and that way, but I never had a official guitar lesson or banjo lesson ever. And so that meant I was spending a lot of time spinning a record back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. In fact, my dad used to always yell at me that after he heard Gloria, which was the first song I ever learned on the guitar, Gloria, Gloria, by the Shadows of Night. Now, I'm from Hinsdale, Illinois, and the Shadows of Night were the Hinsdale band. And in Downers Grove, we had the Crying Shames. And over in, what's the other town? We had the Buckinghams in another town. So I got to see the Crying Shames, the Shadows of Night, and the Buckinghams play at carnivals when they were just beginning. And I was young at that time. I really didn't know what was going on, but I think it influenced me a little bit. So I spun that record, and I had a good ear. My mom played piano, And I didn't want to play piano at that time, so which is a detriment. I always think I should have gone back to do that. And I play a little bit of piano, sort of chunk, chunk, chunk style. And I enjoy it, but it's not my main interest. I don't play enough of it. I wrote 2 songs on the piano, though, which I wrote many years ago, probably in 1983 or 84. And I never have, since I wrote them and did them once or something, I have never gone back to them. They're just in a folder somewhere. I don't know if I would even remember how to play them.
Recorded on cassette tape, maybe?
I don't know if I even recorded them, but they might be lost to
the ethers.
To the ether. But, you know, music comes out of the ether, and probably if I got back again on the piano, I could probably figure them out. I don't know.
You do have a little keyboard right back there, but hey, we're not going to put you on the spot.
You're not going to put me on the spot at all there, because I would never go to the keyboard. It's just like a stack of drums. Forget it, brother. I'm not going to go to a stack of drums. So the guitar was my main instrument through end of grade school. I started in my first band called the Young Mavericks. And we always had a country twang to our sound. We did the Beatles and the Byrds and the Stones, but we did some country songs along with it. And I've always stayed a little bit country, even though I'm not a super country fan. I've always stayed a little country. And in the long run, I've ended up in the bluegrass world. I like to just call it string instrument music, but I've ended up in the bluegrass world. And the guitar went through high school and 2 years of college, and then I bought the banjo. A friend of mine bought one, he lived in Westmont, Illinois, Frank Dedra. Do a shout out to Frank. He helped me out a little bit on the banjo. And he was a good player of the banjo when I met him. And he got me interested in it, so I went out and bought my first $30 banjo and started into learning how to play it. And that was in about 1972. So I've been playing the banjo for what?
Since 72.
44 years.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I wish I was better, but as I get older, I don't practice as much, and the hands aren't doing what they did when I was 22 years old. So, but practice will, you know, if I practiced a little more, I could keep up the chops a little bit better. But then the banjo came into my world, and I got into the bluegrass world. And basically, a lot of my dreams came true. The records I was listening to in 1972, lo and behold, in 1982, I was on stage playing at festivals with the same people I had listened to 10 years earlier.
That's so awesome.
1979, 1980, a band I was in from Indianola, Iowa, and I'll give a shout out to Mike and Bob and Dave, called the Warren County String Ticklers. We got a chance to play with a legendary mandolin player, Jethro Burns, and we did a television show and an album with him, and it turned out to be a tremendous experience for everybody. Playing with somebody of the caliber of Jethro Burns, who, if you talk to any mandolin player, young or old today, Jethro influenced him. He was a fantastic mandolin player, great guitar player too, and funny as all get out. He was in a band called Homer and Jethro way back in the 50s and 60s, and they were very popular. But they were a little blue. They would get into a little raunchy sort of material on occasion, so the Country Music Hall of Fame didn't induct them until probably about 1988, but they finally did get in. But they didn't play they didn't play down there because they didn't know what they would do on stage.
Too unpredictable.
They were too unpredictable. Okay. And they were, you know, I mean, it was funny. They did funny songs and stuff, but they were just too unpredictable, so they never got to play on the stage. But that was very interesting. So Jethro coming into the band opened the band up to playing with everybody. I mean, I got to meet Doc Watson, and I got to meet Norman Blake, and I got to meet the Country Gentlemen and the Seldom Seen, and all these bands that I had admired in 1972 that I was sitting there trying to play their songs. and trying to get into their kind of music. And it was just very, very chilling. And I got to perform and play with Red Rector, and I got to play with Byron Berline and Jethro at festivals where I was backing them up. And that was just a thrill of a lifetime.
As a banjo player?
2 years as a guitarist and 2 years as a banjo player. When I joined the Warren County String Ticklers, they needed a guitarist singer.
Okay.
And the High Plainsmen, which was my band from Ames, and we were the first bluegrass band in Ames to actually make the music form viable at a college. I went to Iowa State University. And there were some teachers that were hanging around on the fringes, and we would go watch them. And every once in a while, they'd dust off the old acoustic guitar and the mandolin, and they would play some Bill Monroe-style music, some bluegrass music, and we would watch them and listen to them, and we got off on that. But our band was the first one to go out and really travel and set up. Well, we were from Ames, Iowa, and the Warren County String Ticklers were from Indianola or down by Des Moines, Iowa.
Okay.
So we were rival bands at the time. Well, when the High Plainsmen broke up, and the name tells a lot about the High Plainsmen back in there, about 1974, 75, 76. We had a really good time. We had more excitement in the music probably than how good we were, and I have tapes of it all, so I know when we were good and when we weren't. We had a harmonica player in the band, which we didn't have a fiddler in the very first original band, and the harmonica player took on the fiddle parts, and it was a difference of how we played. But we did pretty good. We wrote some of our own songs, and it was a pretty cool experience. And then when that broke apart and everybody graduated or just got tired of doing it or whatever happened, I don't think it just broke apart on its own free will. I saw an ad or something in the paper from the Warren County String Ticklers looking for a guitar player.
Did you know it was them?
Yeah,
okay.
I knew the guys real well. I had seen them in festivals and stuff, and I knew them, and they knew me. So I just answered the ad and said, "Can I come down?" I came down. We went through.
Did they give you any crap because you were in the other band?
No. No, they didn't.
Cool with it?
They were cool.
Can you play?
Yeah, all they wanted was a guitar player who could sing.
All right.
At that time, it was a guitar player who they could sing.
There you go.
They had previously broken up for 2 years, okay, and now they were bringing it back together. So they broke up in '77, and prior to that, they recorded 2 albums
So you had to learn
before
all that
they broke
material.
up. So yeah, it was basic material, and it was very easy to get a hold of that.
Okay.
But we had some really talented people in the band. Everybody in the band. I think I was the least talented because I had to go back to the guitar, and I was really unpracticed on it. I was a banjo player at the time. But Dave Bunch, our banjo player, was fantastic. And Mike Weeks, our mandolin player, was outstanding. And our bass player, Bob Nibel, was fantastic.
So they weren't giving up their instruments, basically?
No. Bob Nibel was like 55, 60 years old. The rest of us were 30. And so we had this sort of age thing, you know, and when Jethro came into the band, he was Bob's age. So they had, you know, there was buddy system there. Okay. And then us young guys, you know, we could go out and do whatever the heck we wanted. You know. But we hung with Jethro. Jethro was a fantastically cool old guy. You know, he never was, he would always look at me every once in a while. I didn't play guitar as well as Jethro would have liked me to play guitar. But one of my greatest moments was the first time that I ever came off stage after playing banjo for Jethro. He met me at the stage, right at the stairway, and said, "You know, kid, you can play banjo with me anytime." And I thought that was a really good compliment.
Nice. That's cool.
Even Byron Berline said that too. And he was a very big honcho at the time, fiddle player in a band called Country Gazette, who I idolized. And the banjo that I have in front of me now, the Stelling banjo, the banjo player for the Country Gazette, Alan Munday, he bought a Stelling, and I got to listen to it on a record before I bought mine. And so I heard this instrument, and I said, "Boy, that sucker sounds good. That sounds as good as a Gibson," which I wanted to get. And so I went out and I found one, and I bought it, and about 6 months into buying the instrument, it sounded exactly like the instrument on the album. So Mundy had his about 6 months before he did the album, and so it's called Banjo Sandwich, by the way. And when mine got to that same period of time, it sounded exactly the same. So when I practiced with the album, it sounded exactly the same.
That's awesome.
So that was sort of cool. So my musical career got going. We came very close to doing an Austin City Limits with Jethro, but he sort of got sick and we couldn't get it together. And then in about '84, the band dissolved and everybody went to the wind. Our bass player went to Arizona. Our mandolin player went to California. Now this was all amiable. I went to Washington, D.C. with my wife, and I lived a mile away from bluegrass mecca of the United States in Virginia. It's called the Bergmere. And I lived a mile away from that. And every Thursday night, the Seldom Scene, who I had been festivals with, would play every Thursday night at the Bergmere. And I could walk down there, and I would come in, and they knew me. And I'd walk in, they'd go, "Terry, how you doing? Are you here? You know, what are you doing? You playing with your band around here?" No,
Take
man.
the stage.
And I was living there at the time. So it was so cool that, you know, I wasn't the groupie type of a guy. They knew me as a musician, and they saw me play, and they knew that I could do my thing.
Very cool.
And that was really sort of interesting. But I could see them every Thursday night, along with coming in to see, like Ricky Skaggs would play there, Jerry Douglas would play there, Vince Gill would play there. All the bands of anybody known in the bluegrass world at that, Norman Blake, and I would go down there all the time. I only lived a mile away. I could walk there, and that was fantastic. But during that period of time, I sort of quit. And one of the reasons I sort of quit was because I would go down to the Bergmere, and there'd be a young band with like a 13-year-old banjo player who could play Rings Around Me. I mean, and I saw this many, many times, and I just went, "Oh boy, you know, this is crazy."
Huh.
So that's the bluegrass end, and now I'm playing in a group called the Henry Torpedo Boys. Hi guys, if you get to see this,
Check them out
Absolutely.
if you haven't seen them.
we do all sorts of music on string instruments with a little bit more of a bluegrassy side effect to it, I guess.
You do banjo or?
Yeah, I play banjo, and I do. We do some swing numbers too. So I go to the guitar sometimes on the swing numbers, and I could play guitar with them if I wanted to. But we have a couple good guitar players in the band, Todd Wietek and Bob McBride. So I'm strictly stuck on the banjo, which is okay. I played it for a long time. I feel real comfortable on it, and I enjoy it.
Cool.
One of the songs that I'll be playing tonight, I wrote. Actually, about a year and a half ago. And so I'm very comfortable on that.
Very cool. You can just hear, I don't know if you can really hear in the video, but just us talking, you can just hear the resonating of the banjo. Can you tell us a little bit about the guitar and the banjo here?
Well, the banjo, I said I got in 1977. It's a Stelling banjo. It's called the Staghorn, and it's made all of walnut. And it's got
You want to pick it up?
inlays. It's got inlays and fancy stuff all over it. If I was ever going to tell anybody who was buying a banjo, don't buy a banjo that has all this gaudiness to it, because one night I was playing in a bar, and this inlay right here popped off and went into the audience, and here I am playing, and I'm watching people dancing out there waiting to see this inlay right here get broke. Oh, it was this one right here get broken, and just the tip of the one corner of it got stepped on. So I glued it back in.
So they didn't
This was
grab
before
it like
I
a
was
souvenir, like it was like
no,
a
they didn't even see it.
guitar pick.
They didn't even see it. So before I was actually a luthier, I glued that in.
Okay.
And I knew I had to do that for it to stay in there. But this has got all sorts of fancy to it. It's got the Staghorn emblem cut into it. It's got abalone everywhere on it. And some of the abalone has fallen off over the years, but that's okay. And I had a neck problem years ago, and I fixed that myself. But it's a beautiful banjo. It's when I met Jeff Stelling, who makes them, I told him I had two gripes about his banjo. One was that it was too loud, and one that it was too heavy. When I first started playing this banjo and putting it on my shoulder for an hour or three, I was actually having back problems, and it almost quit playing because of it. I said, if I'm going to hurt while I'm playing or get headaches or something like that, I'm not going to play the instrument, because that's the least I want to do. I want to have fun. I don't want to
It's a long time.
be in agony.
Yeah,
But
2-3 hours.
it weighs more than the Les Paul electric guitar. There's a lot of metal, and the whole sound of a banjo comes from the pot, which is this piece back here. And this one's really heavy. It's got lots of heavy metal. Stelling doesn't make them this way anymore. This is, I think, number 362. And a guy named Greg Deering actually made the instrument for Jeff Stelling. He was the luthier who made them, and he quit in '78. So this is one of the last ones that Greg Stelling made. It's a beautiful banjo. It sounds like $1 million. I've been playing it a long time, and I really enjoy it. It's a fun instrument to play. But it's a beauty, isn't it? I mean, again, it's
incredibly loud.
And it's incredibly loud, as you will hear when I probably play. The other instrument that we have sitting here is a little 1941 Martin Odd 18 acoustic guitar. I like little guitars, and this is a little one, but it's got a big sound. And the guys were talking to me about the hole that's in it and said, how did that happen? And the reason I have the instrument is a friend of mine, his kids knocked it off of a chair and or a sofa or out of the case, and this hole was punctured into it. Well, the hole wasn't as bad looking as it is now. And I actually, because part of my business is the Guitar Junkyard and I fix musical instruments, I've actually sealed this hole once.
It almost looks like it's supposed to be there at this point.
Yes, and you're exactly right. Well, I actually had some tape around here because I was going to put a pickup in it, and I would put the preamp right there and hide it, okay? But I sealed the hole, and you could hardly tell it was there, okay? I sealed the hole, and you could hardly tell, but then it didn't sound the same. And I went, doesn't sound as good with that hole
extra,
covered up.
Speaker.
That's very cool.
Right.
Martin guitars are known to be boomy, and this is a boomy guitar. This one, I mean, I'm not strumming this very hard, and you can probably hear that pretty easily. And this hole lets out some of that air. And if I seal it up, even if I put a piece of cardboard over it,
oh yeah,
you can hear that little bit of difference.
A lot of the low
and I've gotten used to having it open, so it doesn't bother me. I'm not selling it. It's it'll be put in my grave with me when I'm dead and gone. No, I probably will. Hopefully, it ends up in the Guitar Junkyard String Instrument Museum, which is my future project, which I can talk a little bit about futuristically. But,
absolutely.
Kevin said that I had all these musical instruments. I've been collecting musical instruments since 1979. I've got about 250 different kinds in my store right now. All sorts of different kinds of things. Foreign countries, Americana type stuff, ukuleles, zithers, all sorts of stuff. You have to come in and see it sometime, folks. It's fascinating.
It's a sweet shop. It really is.
And so the guitar will, before I'm gone and I've left nothing, I'm going to have the String Instrument Museum developed, and I'm going to hopefully have a foundation that runs it until the end of the world comes about, which hopefully, knock on wood, isn't coming up. This instrument will be in there probably along with the banjo. That's if I don't give them to friends of mine after I pass. Like I've often thought that my good friend Frank Dedra, who lives in Flagstaff, Arizona, maybe he should get the Stelling if he's alive to even be able to play it, because he basically turned me on to playing the banjo.
Oh, word. Get around full circle, right?
Yeah. So sometimes, and then I have a good friend up in Chicagoland who I could give the Martin to, and then it would get use. I have no one in my family who's going to play him, so it would get use.
That's very cool.
So the Martin, 1941, it was a mighty good year. We were in the war years at that time, and they were not allowing a lot of this wood to be made in guitars back in that point. So this is one that was made, and man, I tell you, from the minute I played it the first time, I loved it to death, and I still do. And I have not, the feel of the neck versus the sound of the instrument, it lacks a little bass. is the only thing that I know.
That actually helps though. That sound, extra sound hole though.
It lacks a little bass, but it's because it's so clean and clear. I don't care that it lacks a little bass.
Right.
It is a smaller body guitar, so there's less surface area on the inside, so there's less air pushing out of it anyway, so that you're going to have a softer sound anyway. It's not really a rock and roll guitar. It's not really a rock and roll guitar, but it's a very nice finger picking guitar. And that's primarily when I graduated 8th grade, I really got out of playing rock and roll. I never went back to it really. I played in a couple pseudo things, and every once in a while I'll get out and I'll play a little bit, but I don't feel comfortable with
like the whole
a guitar into the amplifier type of thing. I like the acoustic thing much better, and I've stayed there. That doesn't mean I can't do it, but I don't get out and do it. Whenever you see me playing an electric instrument, you'll see me playing a lap steel and sort of bluesy style that I play with the lap steel, which lays like that. I use a bar. I also play the dobro and a little mandolin, and about anything else that's in my store, I can probably play a little bit. I play a little fiddle, not good, but the guitar and the banjo are my main buddies, and I spend a lot of time with them both. And
your voice too,
I'm
man. I
comfortable.
gotta say, I think you're a great singer too. You got the
Thank
Heavy
you.
Torpedo Boys
Absolutely.
harmonies.
Hey,
On
when
point. They're on
you were
point.
warming up before and doing a sound check, and it sounded really good.
Yeah, you know, I've always been a singer, and that's sort of one of those things I think, you know, if I was going to tell a young musician out there something that he should do to make himself a better musician is to be a singer. Work on your voice. People remember your voice way more than they remember you playing hot licks on something. And Kevin, thank you. The Torpedo Boys work hard on harmonies, and I told the Torpedo Boys we're in our 11th year now, and I told them 11 years ago that I didn't care how the licks went, I wanted to sing well, and we sing pretty well. It gets better and better, and sometimes we're off, sometimes we're not, but most of the time we're doing a pretty good job nowadays, and only will get better. And thank you very much for that.
And the gigs keep lining up, right?
Yeah, they line up. We're doing probably up to about 30 a year.
Right on.
We're not too, you know, we're all basically close into our 60s, and we're not, you know, pushing the envelope too much. I don't know. I had to make a decision back in about 1982 whether I would continue my store, the Guitar Junkyard.
So when did you start it?
The store started in '79, and it was
Okay.
actually called Major Minor Fretted Instruments Company at that time. And the Guitar Junkyard was the repair shop. And I have a T-shirt, and you can come see something like that at the store. It says, Major Minor Fretted Instrument Company, home of the Guitar Junkyard.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's like a sister of the
Yeah, well,
Major Minor.
2 weeks before I opened, I had some guys up in Cedar Falls, Iowa, make me a stained glass window that said Guitar Junkyard. And about 2 weeks before I opened up, my wife goes, you know, that's not the greatest name to start an operation with, you know, if you're going to start a business. The Guitar Junkyard. And I said, well, I already
catchy, though.
I already have the sign
great.
and everything. She says, well, maybe you should think about it. And I had a friend, Bob Ledenbach, if you're watching this, Bob, hi, bud. Who had a band called Willie Tune 'em Up and the Major Minor Boys. And I always thought that the Major Minor Boys, that was a cool name. So I said, okay, I'm going to be doing major repairs and minor repairs, selling major instruments and minor instruments. I'll call it Major Minor Fretted Instrument Company. So the name started the business that way. And then about 10 years later, because of some rival business, which was actually a lessons business, came into town, and I guess they didn't look in the phone book or advertising pages, but they took about my same script, and they called themselves Major Minor Lessons.
What?
And I started getting calls.
That's awkward.
Yeah,
Wow,
I
yeah,
started
no
getting
kidding.
calls from creditors that they had, and they would yell at me for not paying my bills, and And I'm going, wait a second, who are you talking about? You know, who are you? And they'd say, well, we're so and so. We sold you those computers and you haven't paid for them yet. And I said, well,
yeah, I don't even have a computer.
Who are you talking to? And they said, well, isn't this major minor lessons? And I said, no, this is major minor fretted instruments.
And that's the reason why you don't have a computer in there, right?
Sorry. Oh, no, I just hate computers. But yeah, that might be another lesson. So I said, when that happened, I said, well, you know, since they're still there doing their thing, why don't I just flip it?
Guitar Junkyard.
Guitar Junkyard. And first of all, I would be first in the phone book anyway. If somebody's looking in the phone book, it would be Guitar Junkyard before M. So I would get the call.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was pretty good. And I had everything all set up for it anyway, so why not?
You already had the stained glass piece,
Yeah, I had the stained glass window. I had script that already had it. My card said home of the Guitar Junkyard on it. So I just whipped it around and became the Guitar Junkyard.
Very cool.
So I'm curious, Terry. You said you were you self-taught your guitar and banjo. I'm wondering, on the luthier side of the repairs, was that something you kind of self-taught as well, just out of pure necessity because you were playing so much and your instruments were breaking and your friends' instruments were breaking? You're just like, let me see that. And you figured it out.
Well, becoming the repairman and luthier is a story unto itself. I was a carpenter for 2 years after I graduated college as an archaeologist. Crazy stuff. And I got into a fight with my head professor, and we didn't see eye to eye, and so I just dropped out of the educational curriculum and became a carpenter for a couple of years. And I was waiting for a phone call from my contractor out in Iowa, and the phone rang, and I answered the phone, and it was a friend of mine who ran a business in Ames, Iowa. It was called High Fidelity Audio at that time. And his name was Alan, and he said, Terry, he says, my grandfather's dying out in California, and I have to go out, I have to fly out there to help my grandmother on Monday. And I don't know of anybody else. By this time, I'm a musician in town. I'm playing. He knows I know PA. He knows I know guitars and banjos and all that sort of stuff. And he says, I need somebody to come in and fill in for me for 2 weeks while I go do this. And I said, man, I don't know anything about business. There's no way I can do this. And he says, meet me Monday. I'll give you the keys. I'll write down the things that you need to do, and then I'll come back in 2 weeks. So I said, fine. So I went down there. He gave me all the stuff. I sat down there. And running a merchant business is, sometimes it's hot and sometimes it's not. So during the knots, I'm doing nothing. I'm just sitting around dusting. I don't want to do this. So what happens is he calls 2 weeks later and he says, my grandfather died. I got to stay out here with my grandmother, and I'll be back in 2 weeks. I've never seen him since or talked to him. And at that time he said, I'm going to call, the business was owned by somebody else, so he says, I'm going to call the owner, and he's going to send somebody out, and he's going to take you through the whole thing, and you can run it. I had no interest in running this thing.
Wow.
But it just
at
fell
this
into
time.
Basically just
But
moved to Ames.
so I said, okay, I'll do it. So I started doing it. And while I was there, I started learning the repair business. And I talked to the owner, and I said, hey, if I do these repairs, I'm going to take all the money for the repairs that I do. And he said, fine, just sell the product, you know, strings, picks, all that. Sell the product. If it needs parts, I make the money on the parts. You can do all the repair work. So after 2 years of running this business for High Fidelity Audio owner, he decided to close the business. He had another business in Iowa City at the time, so he decided, I'm going to just stop the High Fidelity Audio and I'm going to keep my business in Iowa City. Advanced Audio it was called. And when he did that, I said, well, let's see, I've got like 4,000 customers. And,
oh, wow.
Wow.
And there was only a momsy-dadsy store in town that did sheet music and pianos and that sort of stuff. And I said, hey, I'm crazy not to do this thing. So I went to the bank, got a loan, and started the thing off, and that's how I got into the Guitar Junkyard.
Huh.
But in 1982, now this was in '79, in '82, the band was playing a lot, and I had to make a decision whether we wanted to play more, or I have to stay and do my shop. And I really didn't like traveling too much. I mean, we traveled with Jethro, and I really didn't enjoy that all that much.
It was food wasn't doing it for
yeah,
you.
it was hard. It was hard. I didn't enjoy it that much, so I decided to stay with the business. And maybe if I would not have done that, maybe I would be in a totally different place, doing Austin City Limits tonight or something. Who knows? But you can't look backwards. You only can look forwards. So I sort of figured out right away I wasn't going to be a 300-day-a-year musician, and I never have been since that period of time. The String Ticklers, we'd play 3 or 4 jobs a day for weeks on end, and I mean 7 days a week, 3 or 4 jobs a day, sometimes 4 months in a row. It was grueling, but we got good at what we did. There was no doubt about it. But it was grueling, and I didn't enjoy it that much. So that's one thing that if you're going to be a young performing musician, that's something that you're going to have to deal with. Is that playing music is a great thing and it's a lot of fun, but traveling and playing music is a lot harder than it looks. You have to give it to a lot of those bands that are out there, 300 days a year playing music. They're really serious musicians.
Well, Terry, we got to give it up to you too for all the repairs you've done for people. I mean, I know you said you had 4,000 customers in Iowa, but like between Streeter, Ottawa, LaSalle, Peru, Mendota, Spring Valley, this whole area here, there's had to have been thousands and thousands of people who've passed through your shop over the last 20, 30 years.
I'm sure there have been.
Honestly, I remember I was like 8 years old, and that was like the first point in my life that I'd asked for a guitar. And my mom brought me up to like across from where Koteki's gas station was.
Exactly.
But like you had just moved to your different location. So like we went to the old spot, didn't know that you had moved. We're like, well, Guitar Junkyard's closed. Guess you can't get a guitar. I don't know. And then, I mean, I got back into it,
Good advertising by Guitar Junkyard.
Well, I mean,
whoever that advertising guy at the Guitar Junkyard probably should be shot for that kind of thing.
Maybe there's a sign in the window or something. And
well, that building didn't exist very much longer after I left it. Let me tell you, they bulldozed that sucker down.
So you
in the newspaper, it had a picture of it, and it said, "Eyesore of LaSalle gets bulldozed."
Are you kidding?
Home of Guitar Junkyard. I'm sitting there going, nah, they could have said that a little bit nicer.
Yeah, right.
So we had to make the move. My landlord came to me and says, I got to double the rent or I'm going to bulldoze this place. And I said, well, give me a month. And I moved to 1049 8th Street, and I've been there since 1999.
Nice. Very cool.
So I've been there for a long time.
It is indeed a great store.
It is. It's fun. It's a fun place. I enjoy it an awful lot in the repair section. The business side isn't as cool, but I've always enjoyed the repair side, and now my new direction is going to be the museum. And before I'm 65, the museum will be in LaSalle, Illinois.
Nice.
Is it going to be in that same area, or?
I'm looking for another building. I've got a couple places I've seen that something that I think I can afford. My wife has sort of been edgy on it. She doesn't know how I'm going to make any money running a museum. And I said, well, I'm not making much money as a guitar store, so running the museum can't be any much worse. But the museum will be a funded, granted
that'd be
entity that has a foundation that we, actually diligently go out and we charge at the door to come into the museum. Yeah. And I keep telling her, if I could get 100,000 people out from Starved Rock on a Saturday,
absolutely,
rainy Saturday, that they can't go out and look at Starved Rock, and come down to the Guitar Junkyard Museum for $3 a head, that's $300,000 right there.
Yeah.
That goes a long way in creating a better product for them to come and see it again.
Absolutely.
And my concept of the whole thing is hands-on for people. So you will be able to, if you want to play an instrument that's in the museum, you go up to the desk and say, I want to play that instrument right there, and we'll take you to a special room, sit you down, have somebody there to instruct you a little bit.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Play the instrument. You get a chance to play it, hear it. I'm probably going to have a computerized audio system in it, so when you pay your $3 to go in, you will get a set of headphones, and as you stand in front of an exhibit, you'll be able to hear it and hear the history and everything.
That's very awesome.
It's already being done all over the country in museums like that now, so it's not something I know it's not that expensive really to get that involved into it. But that's the way that I'll do it, instead of having somebody take you around and explore that. But there will also be people there to take you around and tell you about it. And hopefully we'll have performances about every 45 minutes on one of the instruments in our performance area that we'll have there. And if I can get it going, it should be a pretty cool place.
That sounds really sweet.
You know, again, it's for the community, not for me really. But all the things leading up to it. You know, I was an anthropologist. I minored in music. I'm a musician. I'm a luthier. I'm sort of an ethnomusicologist, sort of. And I know the histories of a lot of these things. So it sort of just is, it's there, and I just have to get the wheels rolling. And hopefully I will be able to do that.
Right on. So yeah, it's like so many people know you through the repair business, and I mean, even with the Henry Torpedo Boys, like, y'all, I mean, you maybe just started incorporating a couple of your original songs. But I know I've maybe heard one of the songs you're going to play like once. And yeah, I'm excited to hear you share some of these original tunes, because you said one of them's pretty new.
One of them's within a year and a half. Yeah.
And the tune you're going to play on the Martin is like...
The song that I'm playing on the Martin tonight is a song I wrote when I was about 12 years old. And I had just learned about drop D tuning. Where you take your low E string, everybody, and you drop it down to D, so you get the bass note. Very cool sound. I just learned about that. Now, I'm 12 years old. I've only been playing guitar about a year and a half. And I'm up in Michigan. We have a cottage on Lake Michigan, and I'm out overlooking the sunset. And it's just like magic. As Kevin knows, songs come out of the ether. They just happen. And this song, within 25 minutes, came. I mean, and the techniques in this song are way beyond my skill level, I think, at that time. But really, I haven't changed anything other than, well, just a little bit of cosmetics here and there, you know. But, and the song is called The Good Ship Came. And it's, I mean, this is one I've been playing since I was 12 years old, you know, and a lot of people have listened to it and they like the song a lot. I think it's past its time of being a hip, cool tune that it would be on something, you know. I mean, it's just not what's happening today.
Good music is
but good music is good music,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So it's a matter of that. So that's the old one, and then the one I'm going to play on the banjo is about a year and a half ago in the winter, I fell off of a ladder while I was cleaning my ice out of my gutters, and I'll tell everybody, don't ever do that. It's a stupid thing. But I fell off the ladder and I banged myself up pretty bad. I know I probably fractured my ankle, but I didn't. And then I smacked my hand, and I still got a problem with my thumb on this hand. But you know, I mean, I banged myself out and I had a big cut on my eye. And while I was rejuvenating, walking my dog every day, I didn't stop walking, I didn't stop working. I mean, and I was banged up pretty bad. And as I was walking the dog, I was making up this song, and I called it I'm Falling Off the Ladder. So I wrote the song, and I'm falling off the ladder, and you'll see how this works. Well, then, after I got the song done, I said the ladder doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the song, because it's actually, it's a love song that I'm losing my sweetheart, and falling off the ladder doesn't have, so I called it Falling Off the Wagon instead. And so we changed it to fit sort of the love story, or the anti-love story.
Very interesting.
So how songs come about, see, sometimes, but as I'm walking the dog, these lyrics are coming into my mind, so I'm trying to remember them as I'm walking them, and then I would go home and write one down, you know, and then I would work on one and I'd write it down. So after eventually I had four verses, and I had the chorus in it, and it eventually became a song, and we do it. The Torpedo Boys do it now, and it's sort of a fun song, and it's a bluegrass song. I mean, again, it's a totally bluegrass song.
Cool.
So,
yeah, we can get out of your way.
Okay.
And let you share these songs with everybody.
We're gonna head into the control room, and you can have your spotlight.
Okay, this is a song I wrote when I was 11 years old. It's called "The Good Ship Cane." Was on the good ship Cane, Captain Faith threw my life away. Saw a lot of good men wishing to be home again. As the ship was plunging down, saw my life a rolling round. Beheld the shimmering sun a smiling as we went down. Came to in the sunshine, you know them clouds are rolling by. Could not tell if I had lived or died. Past Hades in the morning, you know that Isle of no return. Started my obituary to whom it may concern. Bury me in the deep blue sea. Lay me down to sleep by the coral reef. I live my life as a man loving of the sea. As the ship was plunging down, saw my life a rolling round. Beheld the shimmering sun a smiling as we went down. Beheld the shimmering sun a smiling as we went down. Well, the second song, again, is a song that I wrote, and I fell off of a ladder, and I just changed the word ladder to wagon, because it fits better. So let's see what happens. I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling off the wagon. I'm falling, I'm falling, I know my tail's sagging. I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling off the wagon. I'm falling off the wagon for your love. I'm drinking, I'm drinking, I'm drinking for love. I'm drinking, I'm drinking, I hope the stars above. I'm drinking, I'm drinking, I'm drinking for love. I'm drinking till you come back to me. Tears fill my eyes every time I think of you, and my knees go wobbling to and fro. How in the world come crashing down on me? What could I've done? I do not know. Well, I'm thinking of the past. I'm thinking, I know our love should last. I'm thinking of the past. I'm thinking that you'll come back to me. Tears fill my eyes every time I think of you, and my knees go wobbling to and fro. How did my world come crashing down on me? What could I've done? I do not know. Well, I'm thinking of the past. I'm thinking, I hope our love will last. I'm thinking of the past. I'm thinking that you'll come back to me. I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping she'll regret. I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping that she'll come back to me. I'm hoping that she'll come back to me. I'm hoping that she'll come back to me. Thank you, everybody, for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed this show. And thanks to Kevin and Jeff for having me for this audio out sessions.